Chris, Russ Brown from Kentucky today. Just your opinion about the NCAA's decision to go ahead and play reduced schedule and start November 25th.
Yeah, I mean, we're awfully excited that, all signs point towards getting our season started. I think that, there's probably 1,000 different opinions around the country about, when they thought the optimal start date was. I'll be honest with you, I think they probably should have left it the way it was. It wouldn't open up a can of worms that we're trying to deal with non-conference schedule. But, hey, it beats what happened to us at the end of the year a season ago. So really, really excited about getting things going. Don't know who we're playing first. Don't know how that's going to look. But like I said, it beats the alternative.
Chris, this is Kent with WHES 11. What does this mean for your schedule? Obviously, how much maneuvering will you guys have to do, and have you already started that process?
Well, we've started it. To say that I have any concrete information or can give you, likely opponents, that would be very, very premature. We're all in the same boat trying to figure out, schedule or games that we had scheduled previous. So there's a lot of stuff in flux right now. You certainly, like I did, saw what the NCAA said were the minimum number of games, the maximum number. But to this point, we're in several conversations with a lot of people around the country trying to do what we can to put together a non-conference schedule.
Coach, C.D. Kaplan from Card Chronicle. I'm just curious about how the proposal that the ACC coaches made regarding the expansion of the NCAA came about, and just the thinking behind that.
Well, a lot of things went into that. I think the first thing that was talked about was the disappointment that a lot of programs felt from a year ago of not being able to enjoy their NCAA tournament experience. Schools that had never been to the NCAA tournament before, teams that had won their conference tournament, and again, I understand that there were seniors that departed and weren't going to, have that opportunity to play, just like my 5 seniors from a year ago didn't have that chance. And then you start talking about what is a non-conference season going to look like? What is that going to look like? Are teams going to have the ability to get tested? Low major teams. And so, we felt like that it was a way to sort of get everybody a fair chance at the end of the year and give an opportunity for every team to be in the NCAA tournament. It would add an extra weekend, but again, it didn't grow a lot of legs, so I'm a little fuzzy on the details at this point.
Chris, this is David Teal with the Times-Dispatch up in Richmond, Virginia. Has the conference office given you any parameters in terms of perhaps when the Big Ten Challenge might come, when the league schedule might open? I'm guessing if the start was November 10th, those would have been the first week of December. Those dates perhaps changed.
Well, those dates are going to change. I don't think I'm at liberty right now to sort of give the dates that they're proposing for the Big Ten ACC Challenge, so I won't do that and let the cat out of the bag and get yelled at for it. But they're going to move. I think the Big Ten ACC Challenge is going to be a priority for both leagues. It's a great non-conference game for everybody involved, and so that will be played unless something unforeseen would happen.
Coach Fred Calco with WLKY. You've got a video now on Twitter. The program does the players talking about Black Lives Matter and about a opportunity you guys are organizing for a vote. Could you just expand on that a little bit and details and the drive behind it?
Yeah, my job is to support my players, and they felt really strongly about the message that they put out. They also feel very strongly, and obviously the NCAA, took off Election Day as a day that we can have practice, from mandatory activities. So I thought that was a step in the right direction to get our guys have the opportunity to make sure that they vote. We've registered every guy on our team over the last couple months. I know a lot of programs in our league have as well. And so obviously voting is a right that we all have, that we're over 18. And so our guys wanted to do that, and complete support of the video that they wanted to put out. And being right here in the heart of the city of, the spotlight unfortunately has been on over the last couple months. We all felt like it was an important step.
Hey, Chris, switching back to the scheduling, I don't know if you have any idea yet, but with the multi-team event in Vegas being before the start of the season, do you know how that's going to be handled?
I mean, we're looking into it, Shannon. To say that a decision's been finalized would be premature. Obviously the dates of that exempt event fall outside of the window that the NCAA provided non-conference games to begin. So from a contractual standpoint, I don't think we'd have any obligation to play it because we can't play it during those times. So if it made sense for us to go out to Vegas, then we would. Obviously, I think that the chances have diminished, but I don't have anything finalized in terms of are we going to go to Vegas or not at this point.
Chris, Cardinal Authority, that department is released today on the Elevate program that's being created there. How important is that for the men's basketball program to be on the cutting edge of the NIL process?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think we talk to kids that we recruit and their families all the time about Louisville being a basketball city, being a city that doesn't have a high-tier professional sports team in the area. I come from Cincinnati where they have the Bengals and Reds, and before any jokes are cracked, that was always something that sort of distracted the public. Here in Louisville, all eyes are on our players and our program and the great history that it has. So that's a big selling point. And so we want to make sure that, we put our student athletes in the best position possible if and when that rule does change, and give them opportunities that, unfortunately, Cardinals of the past didn't have.
Chris, hey, it's Jody Demling with Cardinal Authority. Just what's it like to have that date? You mentioned earlier the guys have been doing things and practicing, but you didn't know when you were going to start. What's it like to have that date now for them and the intensity maybe moving forward? And then as a follow-up to that, you guys get them a little bit more. I think it's September. I think it's next week on the 21st. Yep. You get them for more hours. How big is that in the whole grand scheme of this season, and how crazy the offseason's been?
Yeah, Jody, that's a great question. I think for our players, they're not privy to the same, conversations that we have as ACC coaches, or some of these subcommittees, or, the talks that I have with my athletic director when he gets off his AD conference meetings. So for our players, it's a great relief. For months, all they've heard is, cancellations of season being a possibility. Are they going to have a year? They've watched everything that's developed in college football, from postponing the season to certain leagues saying they're not playing. They've seen it all. So for our players to get the concrete answer, this is when we start practice and this is when we have the opportunity to play our first game, I know they're really relieved. I think they had a little bit of jolt of energy here as we had some workouts today. So it's been great. And then, to your point, Jody, we get to increase our hours with our players next week, although it's not full-blown practice. We go from 4 on-the-court hours to 8 on-the-court hours. And, being that we had 3 or 4 months where our guys really weren't in our gym, it's important that we can get them in decent enough shape where they can start practice and we can hopefully, knock on wood, not have any of those injuries that come with guys not being in the best of shape.
Chris, this is Jerry Tipton with the Herald Leader in Lexington. This is such a fluid situation. I wonder how confident you are that things are set now, November 25th, going forward, or do you sort of prepare just in case for alternative realities?
Yeah, Jerry, I would say that the framework is set. I think that's why the NCAA gave a minimum of 13 games for a variety of reasons. You know, we may lose games during the year. Certainly Major League Baseball did as well. You've seen it across college football. And that's the reality of it. I don't think it's going to collapse college basketball and all of a sudden, end the season for everyone. But let's face it, there are going to be times where a team has a guy test positive. Teammates are going to have to quarantine, whether they have the virus or not. They're going to lose a lot of days. There's a return to protocol. Return to play protocol, I should say, along with any type of myocarditis protocols as well. So, I mean, we have protocols upon protocols. I don't think I've ever heard that word more than in the last 3 months. I'm really tired of saying the word protocol, but, that remains to be seen. But the framework is there. Our kids are excited. They want to play the season. We're not throwing them out there to make money like everybody, the conspiracy theorists say, but we're excited. Guys are excited. They want to play.
Chris, this is Ken Spencer again with WHAS 11. From the outside looking into college basketball, it seems like coaches, ADs, leagues are somewhat unified in all this to try to be proactive and make sure that a season was able to handle it, happen, and do it safely. Have you, from your experience, has that kind of been the way this has gone?
Well, I think I think college basketball, let's face it, this is new for everybody. Unless you're Kenny Klein and you were around during the Spanish flu, this is the first time that we've dealt with this. And so, it's very, very touchy. You have folks that, as you know, don't want society to open up for another 2 years. And you have folks that are like, let's just steamroll right through it. And we're trying to be very, very respectful of everybody. We're also making sure that we're doing our part to keep the safety of our players in mind. We've watched college football. I think the basketball coaches have had numerous meetings within their conferences, with their colleagues, to try to shape this as best we can. And not everybody's going to be in agreement, but we've tried to work hand in hand. And I know as ACC coaches, as I've said this in the we've met every Wednesday morning since March or April, talking about a variety of issues, but most of them centering around COVID.
Chris, Tim Sullivan. Go ahead.
This is Kent Taylor from Wave TV. In those discussions, how much discussion has there been about playing in some sort of a bubble, whether that be the NCAA tournament or maybe even some portion of regular season games?
There's been talk of it. How much talk? I wouldn't be able to divide the percentage, but we've talked about a bubble. We've talked about non-conference bubbles. We've talked about, ACC bubbles. We haven't talked a whole lot, Ken, about NCAA tournament because, we don't control that. So, yeah, there's been talk of it. And, I'm sure there'll be some conferences that try to attempt that. The NBA pulled it off. They got a lot more money than we do in college basketball when you go all the way 353 or whatever it is, odd Division I teams. But, there's been a lot of talk. But to say anything's been concrete, I don't think so at this point.
Chris, Tim Sullivan from the Courier-Journal. Yesterday, the university filed its response to the NCAA allegations. They've got 60 days to respond. Do you have any feel for when this thing will be finally resolved? And do you think it poses any threat to this season?
No, I don't, Tim. I don't have any idea. All that stuff happened before me, and so, no, I don't.
And also, is this the most Bengal-like loss ever?
Talking about the one on Sunday?
Yeah.
No, that would be the Pittsburgh Steelers playoff for me. Took my daughter and, rained the whole game, and Jeremy Hill fumble away from, winning our first playoff game in 1,000 years. So it was close.
Chris, working up here in Virginia, curious as to your impressions of Carleague Jones so far.
Yeah, David, he's very, very, very talented, and he's got a lot of moxie, a lot of swagger. Really has big confidence in himself. I think he's getting pushed extremely hard, and no disrespect to Radford, but the competition here in practice, the asks in the weight room, on the floor, the accountability, just a little bit different. And so he's learning some things that I think are going to be very valuable to him as a player and to our team. But I love him. I mean, he's going to be a guy that the Cardinal fans really enjoy watching.
Chris, hey, it's Jody again. What have you seen with your team as far as workouts are concerned, and how have things been going in the time that you have been able to do, and what have you accomplished?
Well, I'll be honest with you. If you include the summer, the fall, it's been a little choppy. Just from the standpoint of, if student manager or GA or a player gets the virus, certain number of guys have to be quarantined. It's been a little choppy, so we haven't necessarily had our full team every day. We're better now than we were in midsummer. But, I love the energy that this group brings. We have some inexperience that we're going to have to try to wipe away through the preseason. We're going to have some guys that have to step into roles that they didn't play a year ago. That's what college basketball is about. Guys graduate, guys leave early for the NBA, and guys that necessarily weren't household names, have to figure out a way to get on the floor, be consistent. And so, I really like our energy. I like our talent level. I really like our pieces. I think we have a couple guys that can really get the ball in the lane off the bounce, and Carleek and David. And so I think there are going to be some guys that make some jumps from last year to this year. I'm really encouraged and excited, and especially with the additional 4 hours that we get next week to really start hammering away at a preseason. For a while, we were sort of without a map. When you heard, hey, the season's going to get pushed back, we didn't know if that was January. We didn't know if that was 1 week, if that was 3 months. Who knew? So I think now that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and we know what we're sort of shooting for, there's a little bit more direction and energy towards what we're doing.
Chris, this is Kent with WHAS 11 again. You mentioned you thought there was going to be some guys from last year to this year really make a jump. Has there been, that person that has really kind of caught your eye?
Well, I think, Sam Williamson looks night and day different just in terms of his body. His understanding of what it takes to be prepared for a workout, to be ready to go from minute one. Versus last year at this time, it's just night and day. And I think that's the biggest jump that most guys make is from their freshman to sophomore year, because now they know what they didn't know, and they understand the intensity at this level. I think Sam's made a really good jump in that area. I've been glowing about Jalen Withers for a year now, and he's going to have the opportunity to play for us. We need Jalen to be a lot more consistent than he shows in practice, but his talent level and his athleticism is as good as anybody on the team. So we're gonna need Jalen to be a guy that we can count on, and he's going to have to be a guy that can do some things on both ends of the floor for us, because he's more than capable.
Coach, C.D. Kaplan again. Given how the virus is affecting everything in life, especially travel, has there been some consideration or talks for the Cards to play Bellarmine, given the proximity of the two schools?
Well, CD, I would say this, that it's just so sudden. It's just so such a turnaround from last night's when we got the information of when our season's going to start. We've been talking to several teams geographically that are close to Louisville that could make sense of what a non-conference schedule would look like. Bellarmine's certainly one of those schools.
Chris, Tim Sullivan again. I just want to follow up on your comment about Sam. His body type, I wonder if you could say what exactly you've seen, and does that change the way he's going to be able to play?
Yeah, I think what I meant is he was barely 200 pounds a year ago, Tim. And I just think that when he went home, like a lot of guys, didn't have a whole lot of access, to be able to get into a gym, to be able to go to a Planet Fitness or a workout place. Guys were relegated to their house. And Sam was no different. But whatever he did, whether it was push-ups, he came back and he really looked like he had worked out for 3 months. Whereas that wasn't the case for everybody. And I'm not putting Simon blame. I'm just telling you how diligent Sam was in his approach during, the shutdown. And so he's a lot bigger, a lot thicker, a lot stronger. I'd like to think that he can take and initiate contact much better than he could as a freshman. I think he's a lot more confident. He plays with a lot more energy than he did a year ago, a bigger voice. He's not as quiet on the basketball floor. Again, I think he knows what he didn't know a year ago. Just gained a lot of experience. So we're going to lean on him. He's got a terrific mid-range game, as you know. I think he can be excellent in transition. He's got to be a good rebounder for us. He's grown up a lot on the defensive end. He's still not a stopper, but much better defensive player than he was a year ago. So I just think he's going to grow in a lot of different areas.
Coach, this is Matt McEvick with Sports Illustrated. Have you and Coach Brandon had any preliminary discussions about trying to preserve the matchup against Cincinnati up there?
Yeah, good question. I talked to Coach Brandon this morning. It's again one of the games that was on our schedule prior to November 25th. And so I don't know if that's going to be something that we're going to have to defer for a year or so. Let's be honest with you. When you have, a game that you're possibly looking at playing in their arena with no fans, and then I'm going to ask him a year later to, come back to the Center in front of 22,000 fans. If you're John Brandon, you don't feel very good about that. So, I want to do, what's best for our program, but at the same time, I'm not going to, put other guys' programs in a tough way. So we're all trying to work together to get the best non-conference schedule we can. I don't know if that's going to include Cincinnati this year or not.
Take one more for Coach.
Coach, hey, it's Jody again. One of the things they did yesterday was push that recruiting deadline back, or the dead period back to December 31st. I know you can't talk about guys. You've got some guys committed, but how does that affect the whole grand scheme of things with guys not being able to get on campus, yet they're still going to sign, and coaches are going to have to come up with a recruiting class without guys being on campus for the most part?
I mean, it really remains to be seen. I feel bad for those rising seniors, and I don't mean just in high school basketball. I mean just seniors in general all around the country. Getting robbed of going to school every day and sitting with their friends. Having to do a lot of their classes virtually. I mean, hey, we're all living this experience. But I think when you think of your fond memories, you probably think back when you were senior in high school and all those things you did, whether it was go to a dance, go to homecoming, and for those seniors, that's just one more thing on the list, not having the ability to come visit your school. Hopefully sometime past January 1st, we'll have the ability to have those guys on official visits so that they can, experience Louisville like the way they should. And like kids should all around the country at their respective schools and their decisions. What we've tried to do, and I'm sure we're no different, is form the best relationship that we can from afar, whether that's through Zoom calls to present information, whether that's through FaceTime calls to gain an even stronger personal relationship, phone calls, letters, you name it, to make that family, to make that student athlete feel very comfortable with their decision. And I just feel bad for a lot of kids around the country having to sort of make these decisions without being able to eyeball things. But it is what it is, and we're going to keep recruiting, and whatever the rules are, we'll follow them.
Great. Thank you, Coach, and thank you for your time today. With that, we'll conclude our call. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.